The Devils are currently 7-5-2 to begin the young season. Is that good, bad, or just about expected? And where do they go now that they're dealing with a couple more injuries? We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils Wire Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend for the most part, aside from the New Jersey Devils getting shut out in their more recent matchup against the Calgary Flames by a score of 3-0. It wasn't a pleasant reunion with Kevin Ball or Yegor Sharangovich or Jacob Markstrom, for that matter, his first time playing in Calgary since being dealt to New Jersey. Just trying to be somewhat optimistic before we talk about some negative topics. What's on the docket for today's episode? In the first segment, we will discuss the injury circumstances surrounding Curtis Lazar and Nathan Bastian. I know to the average hockey fan, people don't really think of Lazar or Bastian as big name players, nor should they, but they're still very vital on this Devils roster, and missing them for an extended period of time, that is going to hurt the Devils in more ways than one. In the second segment, I put out a question on social media. We're now in November. The Devils have played almost a full month of hockey. I basically gave my social media platform a place for people to vent their thoughts, concerns, ideas, and I wanted to share my thoughts on the matter because I know the Devils aren't really in a prime position right now, but I don't think they're as bad as people might be projecting them to be. Then in the third and final segment, when this episode goes live, the Devils will have a game against the Edmonton Oilers, who are missing Connor McDavid, and I think this is going to be a good time for the Devils to get back into the win column. All right, let's talk about the injury circumstances regarding Lazar and Bastian. First, let's talk about Lazar. They put this out on Halloween. Devils forward Curtis Lazar underwent a successful left knee procedure. He is out indefinitely, and updates will be provided as available. I talked about what happened to Lazar. It occurred in a game against the Anaheim Ducks. Radko Gudas was being somewhat aggressive, and Lazar went down to the ground, and he really couldn't put any pressure on his left leg. He needed some help getting off the rink, and it didn't really look all that good. Lazar responded to that tweet and said, "Thanks everyone for the kind words. Already looking forward to seeing you all later this season." Okay, that's reassuring. Lazar is confident that he will return at some point in the season. Before I talk about Bastian and his injury situation, let me just talk about Lazar and what he brings to this roster. I talked about it a few episodes ago during my post-game recap episode when the Devils beat the Ducks. I want to go into a little bit more detail. Lazar effort was never an issue. I've said it on social media. Lazar just plays the full sheet of ice. He's aggressive. He can sometimes find himself into the scoring column. That's not really his job, but how he describes his game, when I talk to him, he says it's meat and potatoes hockey, which is it's not the flashiest of style in the world, but it's still vital for a team like New Jersey, because one of the issues that people have with this Devils team is that they're a little too vanilla. They're a little too soft, and Lazar is anything but that. He always put his foot on the gas pedal, 100% effort. He would always stick up for his teammates. He knew how to lay some decent hits, and he was a very solid addition to the bottom six, and it didn't really cost Fitzgerald all that much to get his services. Now, how long will Lazar be out? We don't really know, but if I had to make an educated guess, and keep in mind, I have no inside information on this matter, I'm just speculating. I think it's safe to say that Lazar is going to miss a few months, and we might not see him until the season is more than halfway done. If I'm just making an educated guess based on everything I've been hearing, we'll see what happens. And that's definitely a decent sized blow to the Devils, who have dealt with a lot of injuries last season. And the name of the game going into this year was to stay relatively healthy. They got Brett Pesci back, they got Luke Hughes back, and now you lose Curtis Lazar. And I know a lot of people complained about the Devils' fourth line, but trust me, Lazar was never the issue with that line. He always knew how to play a solid game. Now, Nathan Bastian's situation is interesting because it occurred in the game against the Flames. He went toe to toe with the wrong person. I get his heart was in the right place, but it was not going to end well for him. What happened? Well, late in the first period, Braden Pahal was playing aggressive on Paul Cotter and shoved him into the boards, and Cotter went down, but it wasn't enough for Lomberg, who decided to lay another hit. But here's the thing, like I said, Cotter's already on the ground. Lomberg basically laid on top of him near his head area. That is really dangerous, especially with skates, how serious head injuries can be. And Nathan Bastian didn't like it. He decided to stick up for Cotter. Unfortunately, this was a situation where Lomberg was the big bad bully and took the lunch money from Bastian because he laid some big hits on Bastian's jaw. Bastian had to go to the locker room. He did not return. And it was revealed by Sheldon Keefe that Bastian actually went back to New Jersey to get treatment, and he is now listed week to week. That totally sucks if you're New Jersey because you're already down one of your bottom six players. And I get that Bastian was sometimes in and out of the lineup, but you never want to lose any depth assets because that was also a big talking point going into this season, which is the Devils need more bodies. And like I said, I applaud Bastian for sticking up for his teammate, but sometimes you have to know your role. He even admitted he's not a fighter, but he just wanted to be there for his teammate. And to Bastian's defense, he's a scrappy player, but by no means is he an enforcer. And they said this on the Flames broadcast. Bastian just picked a fight with the wrong person. But I do want to see more of that from some Devils players who are known to get into fights here or there, including Brendan Dillon, Stefan Nason. I think Paul Cotter could have stood up for himself if given the chance. Obviously, he was involved in that play, but poor Bastian, he stood no chance. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. But people are wondering, how long is Bastian going to be out? Well, courtesy of my boss, Nick Villano, over at Pucks and Pitchforks, here's his educated guess. Remember the whole Connor Bedard and Brendan Smith fiasco from last season? Well, after that hit by Smith, Bedard broke his jaw and he ended up missing 14 games after returning in a month and 10 days from the moment of his injury. That would have Bastian returning around December 10th, which would actually be 16 games missed, as the Devils schedule does not have a lot of downtime. And we're going to talk more about the Devils schedule momentarily, but there's your educated guess. All right. What does Fitzy do in this case? Because obviously you're going to have to give McDermott some more ice time, but let's face it, I know McDermott has been solid in the limited ice time he's already seen, but he can't be a long-term solution. I don't think McDermott can be an everyday player, and the same could go for Dowling. I know Dowling has been solid in his previous few outings, but once again, if we're thinking about the big picture, can Dowling keep that up night after night after night? Because he's been a career AHL player. If I'm Fitzy, I'm testing the waters. See who's out there and who's available, because I'm sure there's a lot of players that are under the radar that won't really cost you all that much, because like I said, the Devils didn't really give up that much to get Lazar services, and he's panned out really well for New Jersey. And it doesn't have to be an established NHL player, but basically what I'm just trying to get at is that you need to give yourself more options, because now that you've lost Bastian and Lazar for an extended period of time, that really hurts your depth. And with McDermott and Dowling now set to see more reps, if supposedly, you don't really have that many options behind them. So if you're looking at someone in the AHL, maybe it'll be Nolan Foote. I don't really know. You just have to do whatever it takes to give yourself more options, because you don't want to run into the same situation you did last season where you dealt with a decent amount of injuries and you don't know how to fill the pieces. You're scrambling to see what works, what doesn't work. So that's what I'm doing if I'm Fitzy. Look at all possible options. Look who's thriving in the AHL. Look who might be available via trade. I don't really know. I'm just spewing ideas. But losing Lazar and losing Bastian is definitely not an easy thing to deal. Is definitely not an easy thing to deal with if you're the Devils. All right. We're going to talk more about the Devils season up to this point momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Indeed. I've actually used Indeed to book myself some play-by-play gigs. I use it to this very day. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And now, let me tell you guys about Built Rewards. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn the rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studios, classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent-free, hassle-free through Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you join built.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure you use our URL so you know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points with your rent payments today. Okay, let's talk about the current state of the Devils. I put this question out on social media. The Devils are currently 7-5-2. They have 16 points. They're in the middle of the pack in the Metropolitan Division. They're below the New York Rangers, the Carolina Hurricanes, who are currently on a 6-game winning streak, the Washington Capitals, who have surprised me tremendously. I guess never underestimate the greatness of Alexander Ovechkin. He wants to break that Wayne Gretzky record this year, and I think he can do that. He's been scoring a lot of goals. But anyway, digressing a little bit, the Devils are middle of the pack in the Metropolitan Division, and I asked you guys on social media, how are you feeling? And I said, share your thoughts, concerns, or ideas. And a lot of you had various opinions as to how the Devils are currently stacked up. And I wanted to share my thoughts on the matter. I talked about this on this show before, but I predicted for the Devils to get off to somewhat of a slow start, because here's reality surrounding it. They had to cut their preseason early. And that's not good for players like Jack Hughes because Jack only appeared in one preseason game. And keep in mind, he's coming off of shoulder surgery a few months prior. That's not good because Jack needs to try to ease back into it. And now he's thrusted into the pack of wolves right away. And sometimes you see that he's a little hesitant every now and again. I think he's starting to pick it up just a little bit more, but it's not the Jack Hughes that we saw last year because Jack Hughes at the conclusion of October was the first star of the month for the NHL. And had he not dealt with a couple of big injuries, I think he would have been in the running for the Hart Trophy, but that's a discussion for another time. Preseason got cut short. They had to travel across the ocean to Prague, and that can definitely take a toll on you. And it's just like, okay, you had a shortened preseason, you had a shortened training camp. Here's your new coach. Here's a bunch of new players. Try to make it work. They made it work because they went up against the Buffalo Sabres, who aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I don't care that Lindy Ruff is behind the bench. And they walked out of Prague with a record of 2-0. All right, they're off to a decent start. But here's the thing. The Devils haven't really had much practice time, and they've played the most games out of any NHL team up to this point. They have played 2 more games than the Sabres, just for reference. And Sheldon Keefe talked about it, I think, a few weeks ago, where he said the lack of practice time has really hurt the Devils, the lack of off days. They're basically trying to make it work on this Western Canadian trip because it's like they feel like they'll have more time to practice. And injuries certainly haven't made things easier because they did get Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes back recently, but they've lost Curtis Lazar and Nathan Bastian, 2 bottom 6 players, and that hurts your depth, like I said in the first segment. Let me share this tweet that I put out in late September because people were complaining about the Devils preseason. Coming back from offseason surgery, Jack Hughes, Timo Meier, Dougie Hamilton, Brett Pesce. And I guess even though he didn't have surgery, you can add Luke Hughes because he's coming back from injury. New guys, Stefan Nason, Brendan Dillon, Paul Cotter, Brett Pesce, Tomas Tatar, Jacob Markstrom, Johnny Kovacevic. Injured, Curtis Lazar, Nathan Bastian. New coach, new system. I think the only player on this Devils roster who has played under Sheldon Keefe at some point was Stefan Nason, but this was in the AHL when Nason was playing for the Marlies. Completely different if we're being realistic. The thing is, like, I want the Devils to string together a few good runs. I want them to go on a 5-game winning streak. I want them to go on a 10-game winning streak at some point. But at the same time, I'm realistic. Going into the season, I do have big expectations for Devils. And I think once they mesh together, once they get some more off days, once they get some more practice time, I think they're going to be just fine. But everything has just been coming at them all at once. And sometimes it's hard to get control of your bearings. And I just want to be somewhat patient with them because I don't think this is the same team from last year, in my personal opinion. Because if we look at the standings, yes, they're middle of the pack, but in terms of points, they're tied with the Capitals and the Hurricanes. And they're just 1 point under the Rangers. Just saying. So I get that people want them to go on like a 13-game winning streak like they did a couple seasons ago. But when you have a new coach, a new system, a bunch of new players, dealing with some injury here or there, and also trying to incorporate players that are coming back from off-season surgery, that's a lot to digest. And I said it in an article for Pucks and Pitchforks. I've said it on this show. Be patient with this Devils team. In my opinion, I think they've done somewhat decent based on the cards that's been dealt to them. And I know what the numbers say. They have mediocre goaltending, or in fact, they have below mediocre goaltending. But honestly, in some of those games, the goaltending wasn't the issue. Like the previous game against the Flames, the Devils failed Jacob Markstrom in that matchup, or the game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I said that Jake Allen actually did look strong to begin the game, but the defense in front of him kind of failed them. And I talked about my opinions on the Detroit Red Wings outing, where I think the Devils did get screwed at times by some bad calls from the referees, but they kind of put themselves into that situation, and you can't do that in the first place. Don't come at me, Red Wings fans. That's just my personal opinion. But my thing is like, yes, this Devils team has a lot of talent. And if they don't make the playoffs, it will be disappointing. But for right now, we're in November. It's still very early in the season. I think the Devils are in a decent spot. Let's just give them some more time to really gel together, to really buy in to Sheldon Keefe's system and let them develop that chemistry, because I've seen a lot of good from this Devils team, especially from that third line of Paul Cotter, Eric Hollis, Stefan Nason. They've really impressed me. Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes coming back from injury. Great defensive pairing. Jonas Siegenthaler has really stepped up defensively as well. And Nico Hischier, he has elevated his offensive game. And he's even said it himself. If he has the open lane, if he has the open shot, he's going to take it. And I love that. They're going to be just fine, at least in my opinion. So for anyone who's concerned, for anyone who says book your vacation plans early, for anyone who says like the Devils are overrated, take it easy on them. Let's give them some more time. Now, if they're doing this in late December, then you probably need to grow a little concerned, because that's when the points really start to settle. And the Devils fell victim to that last year. You don't want to be in a situation where come mid-season, you're playing catch up and you basically need a lot to go your way in order to sneak your way into the playoffs. In closing, I expect big things from the Devils, but I did anticipate for them to get off to a slow start. All right. I'll give you guys a brief preview on their upcoming game against the Oilers. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Prize Picks. I actually use Prize Picks frequently, especially during the basketball season. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the sports action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And now, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay. The Devils are set to do battle against the Western Conference champion Edmonton Oilers. All right, here's the narrative courtesy of NHL PR and what you can expect from the Oilers this season. After pushing the Stanley Cup final to an improbable Game 7 before falling to the Panthers, the Oilers will look to follow in Florida's footsteps by returning to the final in the 2024-2025 season to rewrite the story with a different result, following a third straight year of being eliminated by Cup champions. It is setting up to be a milestone year for Connor McDavid, who's going to miss some time due to injury. Coming into the season, he was just 53 assists away from 700 and just 18 points from reaching the 1,000-point milestone. Only 4 players in NHL history have reached 1,000 points in fewer than 700 games, one of them being Wayne Gretzky. And you know what? I'll name the other. Mario Lemieux, Super Mario. Who's the GOAT? Lemieux or Gretzky? I think it's a similar debate, like who's the GOAT, Jordan or LeBron? I think LeBron's the GOAT, but in hockey, I'll say Gretzky. And also factor in the era. Well, that'll spark some debate, but that's a discussion for another time. McDavid also has a chance to become the fourth player in NHL history to post 4 consecutive 120-point seasons, but I think that's going to be rather tough because he's missing some time due to injury. But if I've learned anything from Alexander Ovechkin, never doubt greatness. All right. McDavid is out in this game, but obviously the Oilers have other offensive talent, including Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, just to name a few. But I really want the Devils to capitalize on this opportunity because the Oilers are missing their main centerpiece, and that's McDavid. Once again, the Devils know how to battle hard. I know they got shut out in the previous matchup against the Flames 3-0, but I don't think the scoreboard does it justice because I think that game deserved to go into overtime and the Devils walked away with at least something, like walk away with a point. Or if you want to go back just a few more days, look at the Vancouver Canucks game. That was like a perfect outing from New Jersey because they dominated from start to finish. That's something I want to see them do to close out this Western Canadian trip. So I think for New Jersey, with McDavid being out, please capitalize on the opportunity and don't fail your goalie. Let me know what you guys think. What are some of your expectations heading into this game against the Oilers? And what do you think the Devils should do now that Lazar and Bastian are set to miss significant time? And you know what? Why not? Share your thoughts as to how you're feeling about the Devils up to this point. I'm curious to hear your responses. Once again, leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X Page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.